Hey Bookaholics, and welcome back to another reading vlog. Today we're going to be starting out another My Friends Take Over My TBR vlog. I did mention this in my TBR for the month, and this time my TBR is being taken over by my friend Kris over at a Fictional Escapist. I will leave Kris linked down below. Kris did initially choose the Foz Meadows duology, but I can't get my hands on it, so we have some different books to tackle today instead. The first thing that I have is I have the entirety of the Wolf Den trilogy by Elodie Harper. The first book being The Wolf Den, the second book being The House with the Golden Door, and the third book being The Temple of Fortuna. And this is the story of Amara, who is a slave in a brothel in Pompeii in 74 AD. So 5 years before the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. So I suspect that the series is just going to be her life up until the eruption. I don't know if that means that she's going to die and that's why it concludes, or if that's going to lead to her freedom. I don't know yet. I have no idea. But I am very excited to be getting to this series. And the other one that I have is A Taste of Gold and Iron by Alexandra Rowland. This one is a romantasy in which we are following a prince whose sister is the queen, and he kind of like fumbles a diplomatic situation that could have ended up being very dangerous. So his sister smooths it over and he wants to then make it up to his sister for his mistakes. So he is then sent to go oversee a break-in in their most prestigious guild, and he is assigned a bodyguard to be able to do this investigation. The bodyguard doesn't like him because he believes that this prince is a bit of a risk because of his diplomatic fumbling that he did. So then a murder mystery, I think, investigation starts to begin, or some kind of like deep-seated conspiracy starts to begin to unravel, and it's a bodyguard romance. So I'm very excited for this one. This one's very floppy by UK paperback standards as well, so very excited to get to reading this one. I have actually already started. Today's actually the 2nd, it's Sunday. I was supposed to start this yesterday, but I was just a bit knocked out from Halloween, I'm not gonna lie. I did start reading, but I haven't started vlogging yet. So I did start The Wolf Den yesterday. I'm now on page 64. I haven't got a huge amount to say. I have a new bookmark in here as well. It's so cute. I don't have a huge amount to say on it yet because I haven't really gotten far enough in, but we've been introduced to our characters. So we are following Amara, who is our protagonist, and then also the other women that are in the brothel with her. At the minute, I don't really know the full extent of what the plot of this is, aside from that she is a woman who is a slave and who clearly does not want to be a sex slave. Who'd have thought it? And that's the full extent of my knowledge. So I'm very excited to continue on. I'm really liking the atmosphere we've got in here. We've actually even got at the beginning quotes from some of the graffiti that's found on the walls in Pompeii, because graffiti is actually very common in a lot of Roman cities that a lot of people don't know. So at this point, obviously, when Vesuvius erupted and kind of froze Pompeii in time with the way that the ash kind of contained everything, it meant that when we excavated we could see things like the graffiti. So there are actual quotes from the graffiti that is found actually in Pompeii on here, which is very, very cool. So yeah, a lot of research has clearly gone into it. I'm excited to get to know the characters a little bit better and also to figure out what the plot of this book is. So I'm looking forward to continuing. But yeah, that's my TBR for however long it takes me to read these books. I'm hoping not long. This one does feel very readable and they're all a relatively decent size. This one's a bit chunkier, but again, it's a romance and I do find that romances tend to read very quickly. I've heard it's slow burn, but a slow burn romance doesn't inherently mean it's going to be a slow read. So I'm hoping that's the case with this one. I'm going to get to reading and I'll check back in when I have some thoughts on something. Hey vlog, I am back because I am now halfway through The Wolf Den. I actually read like half a book in a day. It's been a hot minute since I've done that. Hopefully getting back on track. I'm really liking the way that this is being told, the focus, I suppose it is choosing, the lens and the angle that we are looking at this story from. The way that we have Amara being the one that's telling the story, specifically from the position that she is in. She is neither the most coveted of the she-wolves from the Wolf Den. She is not necessarily the most well versed in it. She's not been there the longest. She is someone who is relatively new. She is not necessarily someone who is deemed the prettiest, but there is something about her. There is a fierceness about her which makes her a good protagonist, but a fierceness about her not making her untamable. She's not this super tough, never beaten into submission kind of woman. She is just someone who hasn't given up yet. And I think that there's a difference there. And I think a lot of the time we see, especially women characters, but in general, we see characters who are in these positions who are constantly pushing back to the point, it's almost like self-harm, to the point where it's almost like they want to be killed off, or they want to give up. She has not given up, and therefore she's not making impetuous and stupid decisions. She is just someone who is trying her best to figure out a way to see a light at the end of the tunnel. And I really appreciate the way that we're seeing her. I'm very curious to see where this is going to lead. I still am not sure what the actual point of the book is yet, and that's fine. This is basically a character study, and that's fine. And it's not that there isn't a plot. There are multiple things happening plot-wise. I just don't see what the point of the book is yet, like what the end game is, if it is just supposed to be a character study or if other things are going to happen. And if it's just a character study, I'm curious how we're going to make an entire trilogy out of this. So yeah, so far I am enjoying what I'm reading. Hopefully I can continue to enjoy what I'm reading, devour this series in no time. So yeah, the hope is that I'm going to continue this today. I've got other stuff to do as well. I've got a video to edit and stuff as well, but I am excited, question mark, to get back into this when I've got some time. Hey vlog, I am checking in. It's now Tuesday and I have finished The Wolf Den. The ending. So many emotions in such a short span of time, like so many. And I love the complexity of these characters. These mostly amoral characters, including our protagonist, and yet I feel so strongly about them because they feel like real people with nuance and layers and complications, and you hate them and you love them, and they elicit such real responses. Fantastic. Amazing. I'm so glad that Kris has made me read this, and I'm now going to go dive right back in, and I'm going to get to book 2. 5 stars, not really surprising anyone, I don't think. I had a phenomenal time with this book. I truly don't know why it has taken me this long to get to this, because again, just the characterization, even if the only takeaway from this, because there's not a huge amount of plot in here, but the characterization in here is phenomenal. And obviously, given the ending, I'm now very curious to see what the point of book 2 is. What's really curious about this series is it's not only the intrigue of the story, it's also kind of seeing what the overall plot is. Like, it's not immediately apparent, and now we've gotten to a point where things are going to change for our protagonist, and I once again don't know what the point of book 2 is going to be. I know where it's going to start, but that's it. I don't know what the end game of the book is going to be. I had such a good time with it. I can't wait to continue. Thank you, Kris. Gigi. Hey. He's a good boy. Hey vlog, I've been adopted by a cat. This is not a cat that we have deliberately acquired. I'm sure you've seen the B-roll and I've just shown you him now. This is Gigi. This is Gigi. we had no particular interest in getting any pets at the moment, but Gigi just has decided that he is our pet. It just keeps going by, and he's just moved in, like he just lives here now. So we think, so our neighbor next door, like that way, has a shit ton of cats, but like they'll have collars and stuff, so like you can tell when they're hers, and like the male ones are spayed, like they've got the clip in their ear thing to say that they're spayed. So we think that Gigi was attracted to the smell of like the food from all the cats that she has next door, but they won't let him get near. So he just started hanging out here. Jamie, my husband, has been like feeding him for a few days, and now he just kind of comes in, and apparently he lives here now. So we've acquired Cat. He's very friendly, a bit skittish. Like he's not the biggest fan of like the kids yet. Like he gets scared when they make a lot of noise and things. But he's been coming in the house and like just chilling in here with me. He likes it when I'm here by myself, like when it's just me and him. I'm feeling honoured. So yeah, he's hanging out for a while. How long he'll stick around, who knows? You know, like that's the thing with cats, you know, they're independent. We live in the countryside. He might find somewhere better, somewhere that benefits him more, that's fine. Or he might just hang out with us, who knows? But yeah, Gigi's, for now, at least, part of the family. We've been quite distracted because like basically it's just like, oh, where's the cat? Is the cat gonna play with us? I think humans are to cats what dogs are to humans, I swear. It's like, is the cat here? It's ridiculous. So we have a friend at the moment, so very distracted. But this is a reading vlog, so I thought I'd check in because I am now halfway through The House with the Golden Door. So after the 5-star read that was The Wolf Den, the first quarter of this, I actually disliked this book. Listen, hear me out, okay? Like it is getting better. I don't want to yeet it anymore. On the one hand, I understand our protagonist's mindset. I can't really talk about this too much because spoilers, but I understand our protagonist's mindset. I understand where it comes from. I get it. On the other hand, there are just so many monumentally stupid decisions this woman is making too early on into the situation that she is currently in. If she were a lot more established, I would understand. If she had more money, I would understand. But the decisions that she makes are too soon, in my opinion, in here. Now, there's no such thing as too soon for what she's doing in the circumstances specific to this, but for her own sake, I'm like, go. She's been frustrating me a bit here, and the way that her life is going is complicated because of it, and yeah, there's a lot going on. However, I am excited to continue. I want to know what comes of it. It has, like I said, improved in the second quarter. There is a romance in here as well that I'm finding interesting. I'm not going to say between whom, but I'm finding that interesting as well. The characterization of everyone else except our protagonist is absolutely phenomenal. I just found that the way she's going about things in here aren't necessarily out of character. I just struggle with it, if that makes sense. And I can't, if anyone wants to talk spoilers with me about these books, feel free, like let me know or DM me or whatever, because I have thoughts and I have issues with, not even with what she's doing, it's just how quickly she's doing things, and the way that she does things always seems to be just like the worst possible way to do it, and I don't understand why. So yeah, I have now begun to like it again. So I don't think this book is going to be able to get 5 stars. Obviously it could, like there's still half a book to turn it around, and like again the second quarter I am really liking. I don't think this book can get 5 stars from me like the first one did. I don't think it's a middle book syndrome thing. I think it is just this specific plot. So whether or not that will affect my enjoyment of the third book will be entirely contingent on how this book ends and what position our protagonist ends up in. I'm assuming that we're seeing like multiple facets of her life. Very curious to see what this latter half has in store for me, whether or not that means that the third book is going to be not great or completely emotionally devastating. Hey vlog, I have in fact managed to finish something and start something else, so I thought I would check in because I have finished The House with the Golden Door. This did come back in the end. It did bring itself round, and I do think that it managed to save itself from being a book that I disliked. It definitely, the first half really did feel quite rough in terms of some of the character choices that we were having that were really infuriating to read. I think I struggle whenever I'm reading a character where not only are they predictable, I can predict the stupid things they're going to do. I really struggle with it, and that's exactly how I felt about this book. But it's still a well-written book. It's not that there's anything necessarily wrong with the prose so much as just, and it's not even like the characters are acting hugely out of character. I think that there is something that could be said about it being a little bit anachronistic with the behaviors of the people. I can't talk about this too much because spoilers, but I think that this has slightly been imbued with a level of behavior that you wouldn't really expect from this time period. Not in the ways that you would think either. There were just certain things that I think didn't work for me. But the setting is incredibly vivid. I definitely will give it that. This is scraped 4 stars on Corpile. I've given it 4 stars on Goodreads at the minute. It doesn't feel like a 4-star read. It doesn't feel like a 3-star read. 3 stars seems too low. 4 star feels too high. So it's a 3.5, I think, to me. And I don't know if I'm going to keep it at 4 stars on Corpile or if I'm going to drop it to 3. I don't know. Maybe it'll be contingent on how I feel about book 3. I've left book 3 downstairs, but I have started book 3. I am now halfway through book 3. While I am enjoying book 3, and we've definitely got more politics in book 3, and we've got a slightly different setting and a slightly different cast of characters, and that makes it interesting when we're talking about the time period and the historical side of things. It does mean that because we have a time jump between the end of book 2 and the start of book 3, it means that certain elements of our character's life feels stagnant, while other elements of her life we don't know because it's been years. And therefore, I'm watching this woman's life now, and there's all these characters that she knows that I don't know. So we've moved away from characters that we do know, and we've moved towards characters that we don't know. I don't care about connecting to them. That's the thing. It's not even that I'm not able to connect to them. It's that I can't be bothered to connect to them, as weird as that sounds. So while I am enjoying this one, it is only holding me based on interest. It's not holding me based on any emotional connection to the story. So that's an odd experience that I'm having for a book where the first one, it was the characters specifically that made me love it. And then this one, it was the plot specifically and the characters' choices that made me hate it. And now the third one, where characters are something I'm ambivalent to and it's the plot that I'm interested in. I don't feel like this series is consistent. It's definitely not a series I would recommend binging. I don't think I'm reading this series the way it's intended to be. Some series, they feel like a whole story that's been split up into chunks. And those are the ones I love binging. And then there are series like this one that don't feel that way, that feel like they're separate books that have an overlap with characters. In this case, we are following our protagonist, but through different almost phases of her life. And I think that this series does not suit binge reading, because I think that it doesn't read like a series. It's not consistent as a series. There are different focuses in each of the books. There are different priorities in each of the books. So for example, there'll be a character who feels that they're going to be really important and pivotal in book 1, who then gets dropped in book 2. Then there'll be a character in book 2 that you think is going to be, again, hugely pivotal to this character's life, and then we don't see them in book 3 for whatever reason. Obviously, I'm not going to say specifics, but so characters that you get really attached to and you feel are important, then are just kind of background characters. They're mentioned in the back of her mind, and that's it. It's not a series that I think I should have binged. I don't think this is a series to binge, to be honest. And I think that is impacting my enjoyment, because I am not getting that continuity. They do feel standalones with the character you'd recognize more than anything. I'm kind of coming to terms with that, I think. So I'm liking book 3, but I'm not loving it yet. But because I'm having to kind of like reacquaint myself with certain elements, even though I've come straight off of the back of book 2. While I understand why people love this series, again, it's incredibly well written. I have no criticisms of the writing. The atmosphere and setting are fantastic. The ambience, the whole shebang, that's brilliant. I think our protagonist is a well-rounded, flawed character. I don't love her. Like, I find her interesting. I don't love her. I don't hate her. She is an interesting person to follow, which is what you want from a protagonist. My main draw to the series in book one was the characters, and I just feel like I don't have that anchor to the series anymore. So again, I think that this is just the way I have consumed this series is not right, as opposed to there inherently being anything wrong with any of the books. I did genuinely struggle with the first half of this one, and I think I would have struggled with the first half of this one even if I hadn't binged the series, but I think it would have been impacted less if I hadn't binged the series. But I think I would enjoy book 3 a lot more if I didn't pick it up immediately after book 2. So we'll see how I fare with book 3 and what rating I give it. And I think if book 3 sticks to landing and I really enjoy it, then I'll let this one keep its 4 stars. If this one pales in comparison, like if book 3 gets like a 5-star amazing like book 1 and this one pales in comparison, it might drop to 3. And then if book 3 doesn't stick the landing for me, then I think it might also go down to a 3. So we'll see how I fare with it, because again, so many things to love about it. It's not a series I would deter you from reading. I would definitely deter you from binge reading it, and also it depends on what you're looking for in a book. I think for me, for reading a series, if these were companion novels, I'd be fine. But for reading a series, this doesn't feel like a series. It feels like standalones with overlaps. Standalones following the same character somehow. I'm rambling now, so I'm gonna go hopefully finish the Temple of Fortuna so that then I can get into this one. The fact that I'm like, oh, I want to finish that so I can start something else. It's like, I'm not loving it. Like, I'm not disliking it. It's so weird. I'm not disliking it. I am enjoying the book. I think because it was so hyped and I was expecting to love it. I was expecting this series to be like new favorite. This is my historical fiction series. And it's kind of not. It's a shame. So hopefully this one will bring the vlog to a close with a 5-star, the same way I opened it with a 5-star. We'll see. We bake cookies. I've been playing with my cat. We're trying to kind of like house train him a little bit, stop him from trying to like take food off of us, trying to stop him from going on tables and things. And I know that repetition is the way that you do that. You just make sure that you keep making, like, you know, you never allow him on the table. You never allow him to take food unless it's offered to him. Just repeatedly until he gets it, because he's a baby, you know. I think he's maybe about 1, so he's like an adolescent, I guess, in cat terms. So he you know, he needs to learn. But yeah, I'm a cat mum now, so he's very distracting. He takes up a lot of my reading time. So yeah, hopefully I'll go finish Temple of Fortuna, get to this, and hopefully we can end the vlog on a high. Hey vlog, I'm checking in because I have finished the Temple of Fortuna. I ended up giving this one a low 4-star. As I said, the first half of this book definitely felt disconnected from the rest of the series. And then the second half, there were parts of it that were predictable. There were parts of it that were emotional. There were satisfying moments. There were moments that felt a little bit too contrived. So all in all, I felt like there was a lot to like, but a lot of things that I feel could have maybe connected to the series better. As I said, I think as individual books, I actually think they're really good books. I just don't think that they work very well as a series in the traditional sense of a series. So this was definitely an experience and expectations problem as opposed to an actual problem with the book. So I've given it 4 stars, and I'm glad to have read it. I just, again, wish I had a better understanding of the type of series I was getting myself into, I suppose. Clearly I cared enough about certain characters for it to mean something. I don't know. I feel very conflicted, I suppose, about this series at the moment. Not necessarily in a, is this good or is this bad, but just where exactly do I fall on this series when it comes to, is it a series that I greatly admire and really see the value in? Is it a series that I think was enjoyable but that's where it ends? Is it a series that had elements that I love but enough flaws for me to not have it as a new favorite? I don't know where my feelings fall. It might be all of the above somehow, so I'm going to leave it at that, and maybe tomorrow, hopefully at the end of this vlog, I will revisit it. I say tomorrow at the end of this vlog because I am also now halfway through A Taste of Golden Iron. I've been reading that today. Today's Sunday. I've literally just been reading and watching Bridgerton all day. I have a tooth infection again and I am not feeling great about it. I'm feeling a bit sorry for myself. So I've just been watching Bridgerton and I'm glad I'm reading a romance. This is very fantasy forward. I was expecting it to have quite a lot of fantasy elements, but given that it's a standalone, a lot of the time standalones don't necessarily have as stronger world building and fantastical components compared to series. So I was pleasantly surprised by the sheer amount of fantasy vibe that we're still getting here, and it is one of those where the romance is very at the front of the story, but the story itself is a fantasy story. So the romance is guided by the fantasy plot that we are following. You could take out the romantic component and still have a book. You could take out the fantasy component and still have a book. It's a very good balance of the two. In this story, we are following Prince Kadu, who through a certain situation that he is partly to blame for, but not entirely to blame for, some people end up dying and other things end up going awry. He then feels the need to make up for this, and he is assigned this protector as he needs to go and look into why the coinage is being debased in one of the guilds, and in the process is going to, I imagine, uncover a lot of conspiracies. I am really liking the writing style so far. It is a very slow story, and there is a lot of neologisms. There's a lot of fantasy content in here. There's no glossary as well, so you do kind of need to take the time to get used to the world before you can really get into much else. So I wouldn't recommend this for anyone who is wanting a romance because they want head empty, lots of fun, no thinking. This is for someone who wants a fantasy book but enjoys romance. Like, I don't think that I would advise this being for people who are fans of like contemporary romance, for example. But I am really liking it. I do like the dynamic we have between the two, our protagonist and the man that will become the love interest. I think that also the fact that we have characters who have had previous relationships and previous interactions with sexual partners, I think is also important. I actually like reading about characters who are not completely naive and new and have never been in love or never been with a sexual partner before. I don't think that that actually really helps the story in any way. So I really do enjoy stories that bother to include past for these characters that they can grow from and learn from. In this case, also so that they can learn about their position in society and the way that they treat people within society. So I'm excited to continue on with this. I'm not swooning over the romance yet. Like, nothing is like, this is amazing. At the minute, I'm along for the ride, which, given I'm half past the halfway point actually of this book, I am on page 298 out of 570. So I'm a decent ways into this book. Nothing is feeling like new favorite territory, and that at the minute it's odd because I'm really liking it. I like the fantasy, I like the characters, I like the romance. Well, what is going to eventually be the romance, the initial embers of the romance. But I am still really, so I am really into the book, but no one element is what is really got me hooked and desperate to read. It's more just I'm enjoying the experience. So we'll see how I end up faring by the end of this and see if this still continues to feel that way or if my enjoyment wanes or if it enhances. We shall see. So I will hopefully continue to read this throughout today, maybe check in tomorrow morning with a final update on everything that I've read for this vlog. Hey vlog, I am checking in for the last time because I have finished A Taste of Gold and Iron. This one, I've given it 4.5, I think, or maybe like might be just 4. I'm not sure. I'll have to check my core pal. I think it's 4 stars actually. I really did like this book. I really appreciated the way this book merged the two genres so well, the epic fantasy and the romance. I really bought into the romance. I love that it didn't feel like insta love or even insta lust. A lot of the time with the ones where there is a bit of animosity, there's like insta lust but I hate you. Even that wasn't necessarily so immediate as it usually is. Like, again, I can look at someone and find them attractive and not lust for them, you know, just like they are arguably a good looking person, you know. And I think that that's kind of what happened here, where it was blatant that they were not unattracted to each other. It took a while for attraction to build before romance built in a way that I really appreciated. I really liked the world building in here. I think that it was phenomenal. I liked the way that we have the society that we have and the structure of it. I think that was handled very interestingly. I think that the machinations that came with both the politics and the conspiracy part of it, the kind of backdrop to the politics, coupled with the investigation, I think were really, really well handled. So I think that this book had a lot of layers to it, and it was very bold for a standalone to be able to accomplish this much. I was really impressed with it. I can't give it a 5 stars on the basis that something that happens to me sometimes with epic fantasies / romances like this, where it's not a romantasy in the typical sense of just it's a romance in a fantasy setting. This one is, as I said before, a blend of fantasy and romance. You could take away the romance plot and this still be a decent fantasy story. You could take away the fantasy setting and still have an interesting enough romance. So it is a really good blend of the two. My issue here, however, is that when you blend those two, sometimes what happens is it throws the pacing off kilter. Now, most of the time, I really appreciate this kind of romance because it does not necessarily partake in the usual pacing and structure conventions of romance. And that can be said for this one. But one of the problems that I have is that I sometimes feel like the plots interrupt one another. So sometimes we'll be having a romance plot happen that we need to not quite pause, but we need to dial back while the fantasy part amps up. And there will be in the middle of a fantasy part, and it will also then get dialed back a bit to bring in more romance. And we have this shift, and most of the time that was done seamlessly in here. It made sense when we were focusing on which things. Sometimes I just felt like I could have sat a little bit more with one or the other. So there were a couple of times where I was like, okay, the fantasy here should have stayed the focus for a little bit longer, or the romance here we could have sat with for a little bit longer. So it's not really necessarily like it's a problem, like there was anything wrong with it. It's more like a personal preference. There were certain moments where I just really would have liked the focus to not have even shifted, just to have lasted like a little tiny bit longer. But again, it's a standalone, and that is one of the hazards, I guess, of writing a standalone, is that sometimes certain elements you don't get to sit with quite as long as you would with a series. It's possible that I just would have liked it to have been a bit more indulgent, which is interesting because most people's problem with this book seems to be that it's too slow. From what I've heard, like the only criticism I've heard is that it's too slow. So it's not me saying that this book needed to slow down, that it was flipping too much between scenes or whatever. It is just more, I wanted more indulgent scenes sometimes. I wanted the specific scene to have a little bit more breathing room as opposed to the plot overall. But I had a fantastic time with this. This is a great romantasy. I would highly recommend to anyone who is kind of tired of romantasy being basically contemporary romance in a fantasy setting. This one does do a fantastic blend of both, and I would highly recommend it on that basis, as well as having the investigative conspiracy section to it as well, with the guilds and everything. So it's got a lot going for it and a lot packed into just one book. So fabulous. So to wrap up the vlog, we have the Wolf Den trilogy by Elodie Harper, which I did like. I have had so many criticisms of it over this vlog, and that's not my intention really, because I did like these books, but I loved book one. Book one lived up to my very ridiculously high expectations, to the point where I knew my expectations were not realistic. And it lived up to them. It was so good. It was such a good book. It was such intricate character work. And that was enough. Just the character work was enough. And the way it was handled, that the nuances, the depth of these characters was brilliant. And the setting was gorgeous. You know, she clearly cares about Pompeii because it was gorgeous. And I am really glad to have read it. So then the other two, it's more they suffered by comparison. It's not that I disliked the books. I just wanted to love them as much as book one. Book two, because I genuinely disliked the first quarter of the book, is a 1-star read for me. That's going to sound ridiculous. The first quarter of book one is a 1-star read. I hated the first quarter of this book. From there on, it did progressively get better. So it went from the first quarter being a 1-star read to the second quarter being a 3-star read to the second half being a 4-star read. So I've given it 4 stars. It doesn't feel like it deserves 4 stars, but it's got 4 stars. I had so many problems with this book, but it really picked up in the end and definitely still made me want to continue the series, but I could have yeeted the book in the first quarter. So then after that, when we get to the Temple of Fortuna, my issue being that the first half of the book felt unnecessary is the wrong word, but also kind of unnecessary. I didn't care about anything that happened in the first half. I didn't care about the characters in the first half. Even our protagonist, I didn't care about in the first half. The second half brought it back to the point where then the ending did still manage to feel impactful. But I just feel a bit cheated with books 2 and 3 because I loved book 1. Book 1 was the one I was worried I wouldn't love as much as I'd expected to, because book 1 had so much weight on it and it managed to meet those ridiculous expectations. So then naturally here I am thinking, well, books 2 and 3 are clearly going to live up to those expectations too, and they didn't. So while I had a good time with them, mostly what I'm feeling is disappointment at the moment. So I don't want to penalize the books for that to the point where I give them a low star rating, because they don't deserve that. But at the minute, I'm still feeling a bit bitter about it, and I'm feeling like that's my fault because I should not have binged this series. This is not the kind of series that you binge. It's not that I necessarily think that this series would, the rest of the books would have gotten a higher rating had I not binged them. It's more just that I think the blow wouldn't have felt quite so harsh, especially the switch between book 1 and 2. However, we did bring it home because I then gave this one 4 stars and I had a great time with this one. I really did enjoy the world, I enjoyed the characters, I enjoyed the story and the plot and the intrigue. I can't think of a single element of this book that I disliked. I think it was brought home really well. It was a very well-rounded story as a whole, and if you are looking for a romantasy, I would highly recommend. So there you have it. Those are the 4 books that I have read on Kris's recommendation. I had a weird time with this vlog, I'm not gonna lie, but an interesting time, and I'm really glad that Kris finally pushed me to read The Wolf Den, because it would have been one of those that I think would have continued to intimidate me and then languished on my shelves, and I feel like the longer it would have languished on my shelves, the worse time I would have had with disappointment. At the same time, I really do understand why people love these books. They're very, very well written and they are gorgeous for setting and things like that. So if the character quirks don't annoy you, then I can see you still really liking it. Some issues in there for me personally that I'm still feeling a little bit bitter about, I suppose. But that being said, I am really glad that he is the one that got me to read A Taste of Golden Iron. I know that Mare has also been telling me to read A Taste of Golden Iron, so I'm glad that I finally got into it, because yes, it lived up to my expectations and the hype that has been rolled around it for a while now. So yeah, I'm glad that I got to it. But yeah, I also, while you're here, have started reading, I won't fit it into this vlog, but I will mention it, I have started reading Kris's book. So Kris, the friend that has taken over the TBR, has his own book, which is Alpha. I'll leave the Goodreads link down below so you can all look for it as and when you would like to go find it at your local shop. But yeah, Alpha is Kris's debut. It is self-published, and it is a, so far, very interestingly told story. We're following someone who is not necessarily a likable character, which I think is what's going to make for it to be so exciting. I cannot begin to tell you how proud I am of Kris for getting this book out. I've been watching his progress for over a year now, while he's been posting about his writing and the amount of dedication that he's put to this book. So I'm delighted to see it out in the real world. It comes out on the 20th of November, so go ahead and pre-order it and show it some love. It's a story about transitioning in your life, about a change in your life in some way, shape or form. We are in a survivalist sci-fi story and someone who has been experimented on against their will. I won't tell you too much about it. You can look up the synopsis if you want to. I will tell you so far that the writing style is really captivating this character. It feels like a very specific voice in this story that I am really liking. So I'm really glad that Kris has got this book out there. I hope that some of you go check out the book as well. And thank you for taking over my TBR, Kris, if you're watching. A very interesting vlog for me. It's been a very odd experience this week, but it has helped me get through. I'm on antibiotics with wisdom teeth problems for the gajillionth time, and antibiotics make me feel very, very rough. So thank you for dragging me through this week, Kris. It's really appreciated. For everyone else who has watched it, thank you ever so much for watching. Let me know if you've read any of these books and your thoughts on them. Let me know if, based on my liking of these books, if you have any other recommendations. Let me know if there's anyone that you have in mind that you would like to watch take over my TBR. I have a couple lined up, but any other recommendations I'll always appreciate, and I will hopefully catch you in another one soon.